Guys, welcome back to Penguin's Garage. Today we're working on a 2008 Ram 3500 6.7 and we are going to be doing a Fass system in it. This little fella right here, the Fass dual filter separator, and we're doing a grid heater delete on this truck as well as a transmission service. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start doing this. I'm going to attack the Fass system first. I think that's going to take the longest, so I want to just knock it out. Alright peeps, so the audio might be a little fucked up on this video. The mic won't connect to it, so we're going to deal with it. Step one in the directions is to install this relay. Push that in there good. Now they supply this rubber booty, but the rubber boot seems to be kind of janky and I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't really much believe in trapping water into things, but that's what they want you to do, so that's how we're going to do it. These wires just barely fit into this loom. So next step, they want us to go to the truck and to connect these to the battery. So I think I'm going to connect these to it while it's on the bench though. So in the kit, they do provide these little fellas here. Again, not my favorite, but we're going to use them. Alright, there's that. And then here's how this works. These are little squares, and you crimp it until it releases, and then it'll come back. If you stop anywhere in between, it's locked in until it hits the end. So then you know the crimp is good. Now another thing is, these are for insulated crimpers. Yeah, they're square and they don't pierce it. These kind of crimpers are for non-insulated. So when they have the little titty in there that goes into the butt cheeks, that right there is not for insulated connectors. So we got these on there. They want us to put the fuse in. Personally, I'm going to leave the fuse out until I'm ready for the fuse. But let's go shove this into the truck and see what it looks like. So this is all sorted. I think for my next act, I'm going to get the wires down where they need to be. There's just too much shit in the way here. It's driving me fucking nuts. So I got the relay, beautiful little spot right there. Alright, so now that we got the bolt for the relay drilled out, I'll put that in. Oh yeah. So the kit came with these zip ties, so we are going to utilize them. Thing is, I'm going to take it back off the battery. So I had a little change of heart how I want to do these wires. I think I can do it cleaner than the way that this is looking. So let's do this here. Here. Again, my favorite little zip gun tool. Cuts everything flush. You don't have to worry about cutting your little fingers or anything after the fact. It's nice. Alright, so let's put this on there. So we got our little wires tucked in over here, access to our fuse, our relays tucked in here. Everything's out of the way. The wires are going out and around the ABS module. It'll follow the wires down and everything will be secured in nice and tight. So that's the next part, is let's get underneath the truck and get that run. I'll show you after it's run. Okay, so you can see that it comes down Rides the frame rail. I gotta cut a bunch of titties off of it. Goes down. Follows everything here. The hardest part so far, guys. So this has been the hardest part so far. Is this stupid little wire connector up there with all the mud. All that mud in it created a big problem getting it off. So now we're on this side and we have it hanging out. That's our pigtail for the Fass pump. And now we're going to get it mounted. Next step, we got these two fittings here. We're going to be putting these. This one goes into the pump out. This one's going to the, I believe this is the return side. Now, in the directions specifically says, do not bend this tube. So we're going to grab this with a big pipe and we're going to bend it to see what happens. Or maybe we'll save that for another video. Or maybe we just won't do that at all. I like that one. So these are the only two fittings that they show in the instructions. So that is clearly that. And that is clearly that. So let's get these put in. I'm going to take it over to the vise. I'm going to lock it into the vise and then I'm going to tighten these. That way it doesn't move. Okay, so we got it set up in the vise. I'm going to tighten this side. Now I got cardboard in here to stop this thing from getting damaged in the vices. But it also allows it to slip around a little bit. So we need to really just make sure that we're paying attention to what's happening. And you don't want to tighten these too much, but you want them in there tight enough. It's going to be tight enough. And in the instructions, that goes up. So that's that. So, back to the healing bench. So the instructions say to install this bracket. And to do so, we're using this stuff. So there's some spacers. And 1, 2, and 3. These bolts here. They don't say anything about Loctite in these, but I like Loctite. Just gonna apply a little spritz of this stuff. Now I like this gel stuff. You guys use whatever you like. Ain't no right, ain't no wrong. Just this big old slump, what? Now we'll snug these down to 4,000 foot-pounds. Of course. Anybody in the aftermarket industry, if you're putting parts on a truck that uses metric, use metric fucking bolts. That way I'm not having to use American and metric to install a kit on a truck. Plus, if they ever break down, they might not have standard. Like, I don't understand this. Now with these, I'm sure good and tight is good enough. I don't see any oh yeah, it says torque to 20 foot-pounds. Click. 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 Oh, they were perfect. Excellent. Alright, so that's done, that's done, that's done. So there's the bracket, guys. You undo the bed bolt. Mine was able to slide in there. I could tighten it back up. They say there's a spacer to clear something. I'm guessing if it has like a rolled lip around this, clear that, but I didn't need it. So now I'm going to fit the pump up. heavy, little bugger. Little bugger. Wise man once said, make sure you get the right socket and wrench before you get under there. I'll be back. Okay, so in this diagram, this sentence here is saying that they want you to spray a liberal amount of WD-40 into the water separator hole. So I'm going to have to put the fuse in. It's already plugged in. I'll show you guys in a second. I buttoned it all up and then the battery died. So everything's in there and tight. Also, in these instructions, they're telling you to unbolt the pump again, bolt this bracket up, and then bolt the pump. Fuck that madness. They told me to strap that bracket on up here. That's what I did. I ain't taking it all apart. And it wasn't bad to hold it and do all that. So I'm going to go get the wife. We're going to spray a crap load of WD-40 into this hole and see where I can shoot it out of. I don't know exactly what the point of that is, but so yeah, I'll throw the fuse in there and then we'll do that. Okay, so off camera, guys, I just went and did this. Of course, it spit out shit all over the place, all over me. But now it wants us to... Okay, we're gonna lube up the seals here. What are you looking at? Huh? Ken, if you're watching, I know this is your favorite part. You don't have to hold your excitement back. Alright, there's that. The main filter comes with a little O-ring with it that'll go up in here. So we want to make sure that that's coated with the good stuff as well. Alright, so let's go figure this out. The seal is going to go on this. Pushes right up into there. It's nice and wet. Everything's coated in WD-40 too. See the mess? This filter here, and these here have cute little pictures of where they go. So if you screw it up, you really shouldn't be very proud of yourself. So that one there goes on. And then this one here is going to go up in here. We're just going to snug that one because that's going to have to be dealt with later. Man, am I jealous of you guys. It's been a second for you guys. It's been 2 hours for me trying to find this. Go to Home Depot and buy a 3 3/4 hole saw. They don't exist. I went to Lowe's, wasn't there. I went to a second Lowe's that was close by, and I found this one, which is a spider hole saw. I don't know much about these. I'm a Diablo or hole dozer kind of guy myself. But this one says it cuts 10 times faster. Explain to me how you cut 10 times faster. Explain to me how you cut 10 times faster with 4 teeth. This is what I found. This is what I have. Let's go drill a hole in the gas tank. So this is where I'm going to be mounting this. Some of these have a little dot in the bottom according to the instructions. I do not believe this one does. I have looked, I cleaned it, I do not see it. So what I'm going to do is put the hole saw so that it looks center-ish. Right there, and then I'm going to slide this little chingus into it. Now I have a little nipple to where to start it. And then I can simply twisties. There we go. We now have a little niblets. So I have A couple gas cans ready here. I'm going to poke it through, put my funnel up against that, and hopefully catch most of his fuel. So that'll sit in there like that. As soon as I start pouring everywhere, put the drill bit in there. So there's a much less concern of catching things on fire with diesel than there is with gasoline. Okay, that's bad. Here we go. Aside from the drill being completely covered in diesel now, that went well. That's a little wet. Well, we'll let that drain for a while. We'll get back to this. That's going to take a while. It's already been like 30 minutes. So we're going to move into here. We're going to disconnect some lines from the CP3 pump here. Now there's different models. The instructions are stating, being that this one is a 2008, I need to undo this and then screw in their fitting. And then there's another, they say cut this line and do something with this line. Unsure of that part at the moment, but I'm going to undo that top fitting, get that all going, and then I'll figure out this bottom fitting. A couple steps in the instruction can be a little on the confusing side. Essentially there's different makes and models of this vehicle that the pump works on the same. You have to look, right? 1998 to 2002, this is how you do it. And then it says you got to go to F for the correct, like this is my year right here. So cut the insert using fitting attached, blah blah blah. God damn it, I hate doing this on my phone. Use fitting 105 and then 103. So what I did is I screenshotted it so I could see it quick. Here's 103. It's this little fella right here. Sheepskin. So there's 103. Check plus. And then it says use fitting, whatever. It's this fitting, the crooked fitting. So guys, what we do is the inlet side here, number one, is the bottom. It's the one with the plastic nipple on it. The return line is going to stay from the pump. It's still using the factory return line. So you got to disconnect the factory fuel line inlet side of the factory pump, and it is labeled number one. Right there is the inlet. Install the 103 fitting. This is where the fuel line from the fuel filter housing enters the injection pump, torque to 18 foot-pounds. And then we're going to hook up, now down here to number 4, we hook up the right angle fitting. Cut to length, the 2003 fitting, use it attached to the 103. So, all this jib-jab, all that stuff. What that means is we have this fitting here. We took out the fitting that went to this, and now this is going to barb onto here. And then that's going to face down, and we're going to get our fuel line coming up in through the backside, or where my finger is down there. So that's all there is to that. Now I looked at this for a long period of time and tried to figure out, there was a collar on this. I didn't remember if I needed to use said collar or not. The little aluminum wing comes off of it. So we're going to be, I'm going to come in just like this, basically. So that's afterwards though. The feed line, you can cap this off or discard it. I'm thinking about pulling it off of the fuel filter housing and then putting a cap on that and draining the housing. We had a little incident where the fuel tank got a little bit full. Oh, it's just barely dripping now, but we lost a gallon or two. So I got speedy dry on the way. Okay, so we're still dripping just a little bit. We're gonna drill the hole, we're gonna clean it, and then we're gonna put that in real fast. You don't want to put these in dry. In fact, as America's Sweetheart says, you gotta hark tooey and spit on that thing. Make sure that O-ring is nice and lubricated, so when it goes up in, it sets in. It doesn't like roll an edge or anything. It has enough lubricant to compress. So I'm gonna move these out of the way. I'm gonna get my little drill bit there, set up a drain pan, and away we go. Is. Here's the hole, guys. You can see the factory fuel sender right there. Don't worry if your pilot bit goes into it. Doesn't matter. All that's it is anymore is just a fuel level sensor. So we're going to use our deburr tool. Come in here and cut this all off. If you don't have a deburr tool, use a razor blade. File, anything that you want. Sometimes we don't always have the correct tool, and it doesn't make sense to go out and buy it if it's a one-time thing. Sometimes you need it though. In this case, it don't matter. So now I'm going to re-clean everything. Make sure that's all good. I don't want any little stragglers in there. And pick all that stuff out because we don't want that going through the pump. Now eventually, inevitably actually, every time you do this you do get some to go into there. Pull that up somehow. Get all this out. There we go. This is where it really matters to take your time. Get in there, get covered in diesel fuel. If this is your first time working on a diesel, get used to it. Everything you do with a diesel, you get covered in fuel. Mine is changing like an air filter, but even then I'm sure it's possible. Cleanliness is the utmost importance here, guys. So this here, push that up. This guy goes in. Come on, baby. Get in there. There. There it is. Alright. Yeehaw, Paul. Alright. Run that around, make sure it's good and seated. Any last little burrs come off of it. This goes like this. That's gonna sit right into that, and then this goes up. Now this was torqued to 20 foot-pounds, and I'm actually gonna break out the torque wrench and do that. Alright, so it wasn't 20 foot-pounds, it's 12. So we're gonna give it the old torque wrench here. .2. Perfect. So I put these fittings in ahead of time, guys. I didn't want to put it underneath the tank and start reefing on the tank to tighten those. We have good gappage all the way around. I'll show you guys that. So there you go. Looks nice. Now we start moving fittings where they need to be. So I'll show you how these fittings go together. Again, I use Silglide for almost all my seals. It's non-petrol, but it's silicone. Silicone is safe on diesels. So put just enough on there to help slide it on the hose. So, whoops. The hose goes all the way in, and then smush it a little extra, and that's barbed on there perfectly. I'm also going to do it to this side. So the reason I'm doing this side also is because I'm an idiot. Aside from that though, doing it because I got a huge length of hose here. So if I can do one side, cut it, slip it on, do the other side, cut it, I've already got these two fittings ready to go where I'm nice and comfortable. That's my logistics. So on the instructions, you are doing the left side of the cap, which as you look into it, it ends like right away. That is the return, and that's going to the R port on the Fass pump, which appears to be in the block. So we're going to go throw that in there right now. And then the other side goes to the T port on the pump. So we'll do the right side to the T port, which is up top, and then we'll do this side here, goes all the way up to the high pressure pump. Guys, next step on this vehicle is a grid heater. Next step is a grid heater delete kit. So we're gonna get this top plate off the intake. We got this new Chingus here, new horn, and we're gonna get that thrown in the truck. The Fass still is not completed yet. I am 4 feet short on hose. So not quite sure how I managed 4 feet short, but it is 4 feet. So we're gonna go down tomorrow, get a little more hose for that, and be able to finish the thing. Yeah. I want to actually take a second here. I just started looking at the truck and all that. Now, a lot of people will spend money on this. I mean, these can be anywhere from $200 to $1,000, depends on what you go with, and they might even be more than that. But in order to know why you're replacing this, you need to understand what happens. So there is a bolt over here, right there, and that is the electrical connector that goes to the grid heater. So what ends up happening is the elements in here heats up the air and gives it warmer air and acts kind of as a glow plug. That way the diesel can touch off when it's cold. What ends up happening inside there is the resistance changes, right? So it gets a little bit loose, and then it starts building up more and more and more current, and then eventually will loosen the nut up. The nut falls down, goes wee through the intake, follows the air right into the piston, and hits the valve, bends the valve, takes out the piston, does wonderful things. Now, the reason this all happens is because of the expansion and contraction, the heat cycles, and the vibration that electricity makes, and it causes that to occur. What I do, and what I've done on my personal truck, is you follow the grid heater wire, right? Comes back. On these trucks, there's a relay. So that relay comes up and is this wire. All you need to do is disconnect this wire, and you're done. You don't have to spend tons of money on parts and labor and everything else to have this done, because it's just not necessary. And yeah, so my truck, there was one wire going over to the battery, disconnected it, it's off. I've done that since day one. Now, if you have a truck with 200,000 miles on it and it's been like this its whole life, it might be worth a peek. But you can essentially just delete the grid heater out of it and call it a day. So, little tit for tat there. So I started this like I always do. Nice cleaning. You can see down here we have the fuel line capped off because, well, we don't have a line for it. I disconnected the battery, well, the relay wire from the battery, so there's no power available to come over here. And anytime you're working on a diesel, these things get the reputation for being such badass trucks and indestructible and yada yada. It doesn't take much to take out a diesel. Yes, they are strong, they are robust, they will work and work. A little grain of dirt into that little pump there takes out the pump, takes out the injectors. A little bit of dirt sprinkled down into the intake can take something out. When you're working on diesels, you have to be clean, like really clean and meticulous with what you're doing. So keep that in mind when you guys are working on these things. I don't want somebody to lose a motor, because yeah, it's not good. But I'm going to start taking things apart. I'm going to move the dipstick tube out of the way. I'm going to pull a couple of these hoses, some connectors, undo this, get the horn out of the way. I'm going to see if I can sneak this thing out without pulling out the common rail here, but we'll see where we can get. You'll know soon. Also, I know I've touched on this before, but these are IKEA trays. I think they were like $3 each. They're in the silverware section. They make excellent bolt holders. So when I'm doing a vehicle, you know, my top little surface shit's here, a little more in depth, a little more in depth, a little more in depth, and then the last stage is always over here. So like if I'm pulling a motor, you got the top caps, you got your accessories, you got your valve cover, you got this here, and then your bell housing bolts will be over here. So just a little tip, that's how I do it. Sensors here. So guys, this truck here is actually it's had a little bit of a weight reduction done to it. So I don't work on a lot of these because here in California this is extremely rare. So what I'm trying to do is just keep track of the connectors that I'm going to need. There's tons of them that are disconnected and I don't need, so I don't want to be trying to go back together with this and plugging in things that weren't plugged in and causing issues, because I don't know enough about that shit. I think I do have to pull out the common rail, which isn't a huge deal. It's not what I was hoping for. So this is a special socket, and you guys saw this when I did my truck. Is a 19mm line wrench, and it's designed especially for doing exactly what I'm doing right now. There's a line in the way, and you need to take this stuff off. It stops you from stripping them out, which I don't know if anything's going to stop this one. Whoever fucking did this work really over tightened things. Wow, like really bad. Terrible. Okay, so that line's out of the way. Let's take this horn off and see what we're looking at here. It's got a lot of oil in it. Didn't really expect any less. So this socket here was damaged. Sorry, this bolt here was damaged and wouldn't come out. So they make these, they're called turbo sockets. If you look inside there, you see how the spiral design. So when you loosen it, hammer it on, loosen it, and the teeth kind of knurl into it and grab. So that's how we were able to get this guy here out. Now I'm going to look for another bolt. I probably have one of these, so I'll just replace that bolt. But yep, we're back to this. So the rail does have to come out, Yippee-dee, yippee-dee-doo. So we're gonna have to dig a little deeper and undo these lines. Now these lines have been improperly crimped or tightened before, so I forget what the torque spec on them was, but it wasn't crazy high, and yeah, they over tightened them. So I gotta take everything out. Okay guys, so here's the bottom of the intake. There's your grid heater, and there's the culprit right there. That little fella loosens up, goes into the intake, and wipes something out. Whether it be, I don't know, anything. Valve, piston, whole motor. Doesn't matter. It gets a motor at that point. So, here we are. We got it all torn apart. And basically I just kept doing what I was doing before. Undid the bolts for the intake. And this is where we are. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up. What I'd like to do on this is I'm going to put some paper towels inside of this intake, and then I'm going to clean this up with my air vacuum, and then scrape it all down and install the new intake. I have a call out to the owner of the vehicle because these are bad. Like, I really don't want to be putting this truck back together. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bunch of dirt inside of these. And the problem with these rails are you really can't... I am not set up to pull this rail down, put it into an ultrasonic cleaner, and then, you know, go from there. This thing really needs to get a new rail. I would replace the lines and the rail if this was my personal truck. However, it is not, so I got to do what he wants to do. Because this is an air vacuum. What it does is you put an air line in here, and it comes up through here, and it blows it backwards, which ultimately creates a vacuum. So the reason this is good is because there's fuel involved in this, and there's other chemicals involved. So we don't want to suck it up with that guy there, and then have that thing there go poof and look like a Looney Tune character. So what I do is I use my air vacuum. So I'm going to hook up the air line, and then I'll hold this over things as I scrape it, and it pulls it right out of the engine compartment. Everything is clean. So what I'm using, this is like an emery cloth. We're gonna just kind of wipe this all down real nice like. And you do not want to use brake cleaner around the intake of a diesel. So we can't clean this up with brake cleaner. Ta-da! That's nice and clean. Now we're gonna vacuum it one more time. That's what it looks like now, guys. Beautiful. New intake with the new gasket. Boom, chocolita. Okay, guys, so two comments here. Number one, if you are someone that is working on vehicles or whatnot, there's two things you need to know. Number one, when to stop. Number two, when to call a customer. When I saw the fuel rail inside here and how dirty it was inside the bore, especially around the sealing surface, so there's a cone in there. I can't really zoom in on it. Oh, I can. So here's the lines that go into it. Now, two things. You see this line that you can see with your fingernail? Kind of right there. I can feel it. That's not good. There's a possibility of that not sealing. So what we do is I look inside of these and I look for dirt. So let's pop one of these off. I did just clean this. Well, cleaned it, right? So all I can do to clean these is to wipe them out with a paper towel, spray them with WD-40, this is not used on that. We're not spraying brake clean into this. But I mean, it looks to the eyes like they're clean in there now. This one here was the dirtiest, and it's clean. But what you can't see is the dirt that's going to matter. So a good filter goes down to 2 microns. Crappy Wix filters and stuff can be 10 micron and stuff like that. So you're talking micro dirt that can wipe out an injector. So I'm concerned about this. So I called the customer and I said, hey, there's dirt in this rail. I do not feel comfortable putting it back on. I want to give you the option. I wipe it out and do the best I can, but I can't clean out in here. And if any dirt went into any of those holes, nothing I can do. I don't want to be inconsiderate, but there's only so much you can do. So here's your opportunity. If this was my truck, I'd replace this rail and I would replace all of these lines because of this. There's no chance of that. Well, sorry. There's a chance that that's going to leak. That being said, I would be doing all of these lines, especially if there's dirt in there, there's dirt in here. And then I would replace this rail, and yeah. He opted to have me clean it the best I could and then reinstall it into the truck. So me as the tech, here's what can happen to this. It's up to you. You tell me what you want me to do to your vehicle. So these rails, I don't know off the top of my head, but I did look it up. It looks like it's $1,000 from Cummins. They do have aftermarket ones like BD Diesel and stuff like that. It looks like $400 or $500. So they're not cheap, but injectors aren't either. As you guys know, I just put an injector in my truck, so that was $1,000 in parts just for one injector and all the gaskets and seals and everything. So yeah, let's put this back on the truck. We'll get everything torqued down, get the lines back on it, and get this part of the job done. So all of these get torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. Alright guys, once I can get to some that I can film better, I'll show you guys how to torque these. As far as right now goes, I can hardly touch the back line, so I'm going to get these torqued all the way up to here, and then we'll see. All the petty little shit's in. I need one little nut. That's what she said. Okay, it's time to get horny. Alright, so it fits. I just got to go switch over the air intake temp sensor real quick. So I've been over here doing what I thought was going to be a quick swap. Took the sensor, put it over into this one, and then here's where the problem started. Took the air intake temp sensor / EGR temp sensor for something, took it out of there. I went to install it in here. Here's the problem. This slides. This is supposed to seat into something, screw in. So number one, it was the wrong fucking size. So I tapped it out to the correct size, and then I realized that's what we got going on. So going back together with this. I looked this up. This is a $100 part. If you guys see intake tubes or parts for vehicles, and this one's $100 and everything else like it is $300, $400, $500, question it. Not going to say cheap parts aren't okay sometimes, but I'm not going to do it to this particular customer. I didn't warn him ahead of time, but aftermarket parts and stuff like this, when you come into the shop and I'm trying to put this on and it ain't right, and you insisted on supplying parts, and then your truck is sitting there in the way, and I have to wait for you to get a new part, I charge for that. And the reason being is, right now, I got a Jeep out there I'm supposed to be working on, and this truck's in my way, and I've been farting around with this for 2 hours. So, sorry, not 2 hours. The whole thing so far has been 2 hours, but been messing with this for close to an hour trying to figure out how to make it work. I'm done with it. So, keep that in mind when you guys are doing custom stuff to your trucks. Do your research. Okay guys, so factory horns back in. There's just 6 bolts that sits in there, clamps into here. Didn't think you guys really cared to see that. All of our hoses and all the electrical connectors that are used still are back in. Really not sure why this guy isn't in there, but whatever, dude. Yeah, so intake temp here. I believe this is a map sensor right here. It's pretty heavily built up with carbon, but yeah, all back together. So now I'm going to do the tranny service. Oh, try and remember my light back here. And tomorrow I'll grab that hose. Alright guys, so we got another day here, and I got a union, and then I got 5 feet of hose, so we can put this back together, splice it through. Oh, this is way better quality hose too. I'm not knocking the Fass hose, guys, but I'll tell you what, it ain't this stuff. This stuff's good quality shit. Parker. Huh. Alright, I'm gonna get this running the truck, get it brought up, show you how I run everything, and then we'll get it bled out and get it going. Okay, so what you guys just saw there is we loosen up the water separator, and then we turn the key to on. We let it prime for a while. That gets everything in through this pump. Make sure that we don't have any issues. Get as much air out as possible. Now we make a huge mess again. Snug. I just have the pump running, trying to get all the air up through everything, get it all back into the tank. Let that run for a second. This is the part that most people freak out about. You're going to start cranking this thing and it's not going to fire. It's going to take a second, so I'll show you that. I like to do this in little key cycles too, so I'll let it crank for a little while, kind of chill out for a moment, let the starter cool down. It's a lot of current going through it right there. I'll take this time to look for any kind of leaks or anything silly. Everything's smashing. Should be able to get her there now. Now that loping sound, that was there when it came in. I don't know if that has to do with this tune, the fact that the exhaust pipe is snapped off of it. Not really 100% sure what that has to do with, but there's a slight little knock that's going to get a little nicer as it goes along too, but this is pretty much what you have to expect, so don't freak out when it doesn't start. Alright guys, it's hot as hell. I am beat. We got the truck out of here. It is all done. Not because it was a hard job, just because the mixed up with the hose. It wasn't long enough. Just parts and the overall heat and everything like that makes me not want to be out in the garage, and so on and so forth. But pretty straightforward, easy job. Ran the hoses along the frame rail, nothing big there. You just zip tie it to stuff. It's super janky, but it's how they want it, and I didn't have any issues on my truck. These pumps are usually really loud. This pump is silent. Like, I can't hear it at all. Yes, the truck is obnoxiously loud, but the pump is almost silent. Mine used to go wheen. It was so loud you could hear it in neighbors' houses, and that's not exaggerating. But thanks for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. And if you guys want to see more detail, less detail, tell me to kick rocks or whatever you guys want, just let me know what stuff intrigues you, because I do a lot of stuff, but I don't film a ton of it. I don't know if it's stuff you guys would find entertaining or not, but catch you on the next one. Thanks.